you got to figure out what you want your work-life balance to be. How many of you guys have ever asked yourself that question? And I'll raise my hand and say I never did. We got one. That's awesome. A couple. Very rarely, I usually get like a couple people that raise their hand. Most of us don't actually think about it this way. So we don't think about our work-life vision. We just let it happen to us. And we know when it's not working, and we kind of know when it is working, but it wasn't intentional, right? And so no different than a business, right? Your business wouldn't want to just kind of get somewhere unintentionally. A business wants to intentionally get to a destination. It's no different with our work-life balance. And that's what I learned. I had never asked myself that question. What do I want my work-life balance to be? I have my soundbite, and many of us probably do. My soundbite was kind of what I started with. I want to be a really good parent, I want to be a really good husband, and I want to grow my business. But when I broke it down into specificity of like, what does that actually translate into in the hours and minutes of every day, I had no idea, right? And so what I started to do is started to ask myself some really basic questions that I had never asked myself before. And if most of us haven't thought about work-life balance, maybe we haven't either. The first question is, what are you not willing to give up on the work front? So in other words, what's your non-negotiables at work? And then the same question is, what are you not willing to give up on the life front? What are your non-negotiables for your life? Because what I realized is, fundamentally, work-life balance comes down to one simple thing: trade-offs, right? And you have to be willing to know what your non-negotiables are to figure out what your trade-offs are. And until you're willing to understand what your trade-offs are, you may not be willing to accept the implications of them. And I'll give you a really good example just from my own life. So when I started going through this process of saying, hey, what are my non-negotiables on both sides? At first, my list was pretty long on both, as you might expect. And then I started rationalizing a 24-hour day, 7 of which needed to be sleeping, because I'm not like my dad who naps everywhere, although I was becoming like that. I needed 7 hours of discrete sleeping time. So I had to figure out, could I even fit all this stuff in to the time that was allocated? My first answer, of course, was no. So I had to continuously iterate and rationalize it until I got it to a point where it made sense. When I finally got it to that point, I had a longer list on the life side than I did on the work side. And there was nothing wrong with that. Right? So I think one of the big messages, if you ever read about work-life balance out there, we can be almost convinced that it needs to be this 50-50 proposition, and it doesn't. Right? You may end up 70-30 on work and say, that's cool, that's what I want, that's what I need. That's based upon what I've understood about my non-negotiables and my priorities. And I understand that, and I accept what that means. Or you can end up where I did. I ended up about 60-40 flipped to the life side. Even like 65-35, right? Because of my life circumstances right now with 2 little kids and a teenager at home, I had a lot of stuff I needed and wanted to be involved with. And so I said, that's my priorities right now, 65-35. But what does that mean to a guy who is the sole financial provider to a family running his own business, right? I can't do that on 15 hours a week unless I'm some sort of massive genius, and I'm not. So I don't know how I would actually support my family on just a basic number of hours. Unless I said, you know what, the implication and the trade-off of me deciding that I want a 65-35 split favored to the life side is that I have to take myself out of growth mode in my business. I have to go to sustain mode. Now that would have been total blasphemy 4 years ago before I ever thought about this, because me being me, I like to get stuff done. I like to move things forward. I don't run a business just to do it. I like to be successful at it, and that makes me proud. I like running my business. And year over year, I had grown it every single year. Now that comes at a cost, right? There's work to be done. And when you run your own thing, you can literally work all day long. That's just how it works, because you are responsible for everything that you do. And so I had to kind of come to realization that says, look, if I really want these things, and I literally listed out all the stuff I wanted to do. I want to drop Ben off 3 days a week. I want to be at all these things. I want to do this for Ivan. I want to be at Gabe's games. I literally laid them all out and said, there's no way to grow my business while I'm doing all those things. Now, maybe 5 years from now, it'll flip, but not right now. And so I had to come to terms with the implication of being 65-35 on the life side, that my business could not grow anymore. Now, that was an interesting one. Now, for you guys, it might be, do you take a promotion or not? And there's no right answer to that, right? If you decide, hey, I'm taking a big promotion with bigger scope and responsibility, well, then the implication has something on my life side of the equation. If I don't take it because I want to do life, then that has an implication on the work side, and I have to be okay with that. What I've realized is this exercise might have been one of the most valuable things that I did, because I came to terms with what I'm willing to do, and now I'm totally happy with it. I'm 65-35 on life. I get it. And that's what it's going to be. And that then drives a path for everything else that I would do.